All right, everybody. We have another fireside chat with the trade crew here. Today we have Shane Shockley from McKenney's, and we're going to give him an opportunity to hop in a minute and introduce himself and who McKenney is. First, just want to give our attendees a breakdown of who OpenSpace is. I'm Josh Berger. I oversee the trades team here at OpenSpace, and we have Cole here as well today. Cole, if you want to give a little introduction of who you are.
Yeah, honored to be here. Anytime I meet with Shane and McKenney's is a pleasure. Josh is also running these fireside chats. Very excited. Enterprise account executive here at OpenSpace. Been here a little over 2 years. I always like to brag. Josh and I started this whole trades deal, and we continue and pounding pavement. I think I got my saying right this time. There we go.
Love it, love it. Well, yeah, just quick high level of who OpenSpace is. OpenSpace is a company that started in 2017 as a 360 reality capture solution backed by AI and computer vision that allows our customers to automatically capture their site with a 360 camera. Simply just plop it on their helmet. And I'm going to leave a lot of that for Shane to kind of go into and explain how his team uses it. But since 2017, our customers have captured over 51 billion square feet of space across the world. We're in 91 different countries, and Cole and I get the opportunity to work with great people like Shane. And it's been a pleasure. Shane's been with us for a while, and I'd love for Shane to hop in and tell us a little bit about you, Shane, and your background and McKenney's.
Yeah, sure. Not a problem. In fact, I might not even be the best person at McKenney's to talk about OpenSpace. We have several power users throughout our different groups, but I tend to kind of head up a fair amount of our construction technology. But McKenney's itself, we have been in business. Actually, this is a big year for us. This is our 75th year anniversary. And I think for the first time ever this year, we're looking to hit about 500 million. So going to be a huge year overall for us. We have tons of really huge projects going on. A lot of them are obviously NDA that I can't really talk about, as a lot of people in the construction industry experience. But that 500 million is kind of spread out over 3 divisions. We have a construction division in Atlanta, in the Atlanta, Georgia market, and a construction division in the Charlotte, North Carolina market. And we also have a service division in Atlanta as well, where we hold tons of really cool contracts with like things like that, right? So we have several different service contracts around as well. So I myself, I'm just an old pipe fitter, man. I've been in and around construction for, I guess I'll age myself a little over 3 decades. I moved into kind of the VDC side of things about 3 years ago. And have been working very closely with a gentleman you guys know very well, Dan Cotton. A lot of people on the call probably know that name as well. He has a lot of contacts across the country in our industry. So been working side by side with him, kind of running some of our fabrication efforts and kind of overseeing a lot of our new construction technology implementation and adoption. So really excited about where the industry is going. And I will say, just kind of on the front, if an old pipe fitter like me can figure out things like OpenSpace and how intuitive it can be, anybody can do it, right? So I know a lot of times people in construction, when we step into new technology, we're a little intimidated, a little overwhelmed, things like that, right? But if I can figure this out and figure out just how intuitive it is, anybody can do it. So
I love that. Hey, and so before we hop in, I actually have a question on that point. So 30 years in the business, call yourself an old pipe fitter.
Right.
You got into VDC. Like, what interested you in the VDC route?
Well, honestly, I started with my dad when I was like 14, right? I learned how to weld when I was 14 because he was an old pipe welder. And I did that for years and years and years. And, you get into your late 30s, early 40s, and body just doesn't recuperate quite like it did when you were 21, right? And so I decided to kind of start looking at different things to get into, but kind of stay in and around construction. So I actually, at the age of 39, went to college and got a mechanical engineering degree.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I've stepped back into construction, but on the engineering and virtual construction side. So,
Wow.
I love that. So from a technology standpoint, what's the strategy of McKenney's going into 2023 from a tech standpoint? Where do you really want to innovate and implement
right.
technology and make things more efficient for McKenney's?
So we have developed a pretty substantial tech stack at this point, and we're always R&D and new things, right? And I mean, that's kind of how we got involved with OpenSpace, right? We saw this cool new toy and we wanted to check it out, and it kind of just took off from there. And and I guess the several different platforms that we use have kind of been that way as well. But we really like to be kind of on the bleeding edge of things. In fact, and I've even done it with you guys, and as far as been like a beta tester of certain things, so we try to get in kind of on the front end of things, very similar to what the guys from Polk said in your last fireside chat was, you don't want to see this toy or this new thing and be like, oh, that's cool. But then 4 years later, you're like, oh my God, I should have been involved with this 4 years ago. Look at all these great things that it's able to do. And our business could have been so much further along, right? So we really do try to stick to the bleeding edge of stuff. Sometimes it will cut you, right? Sometimes you will bleed, but sometimes you find just these great tools that you can use. And OpenSpace has certainly been one of those for us. Reality capture is I think it's one of the biggest game changers in our industry to come along in a long time. Maybe the biggest thing since Trimble. So
why is that?
There's so many ways you can use it. We at McKenney's, we're a huge data company, right? We farm just a ton of data, and I mean, there's proprietary things that we do with that data, obviously, but there's so much that you can do with that data. It can inform you on pre-con decisions, right? It can inform you on hours, install processes, things like that, right? So we are always looking at that sort of thing. Dan Cotton has been one of our biggest champions of that, and kind of working right beside him, I've been completely exposed to that. And so generally, if someone does get cut, it's me. Dan doesn't necessarily have to deal with it, but it's been a really fun experience working with you two guys and Wesley as well. In fact, I think I have my quarterly meeting with Wesley tomorrow for him to tell me how I'm not using it enough and all that sort of thing, right? So the support we've gotten from you guys has been outstanding. I wish all software companies would support their customers the way that you guys do. There are some out there that are great, but some are just not, right? But the support we've gotten from OpenSpace has been phenomenal.
We love hearing that. And I know Wesley's such a huge value to a lot of our customers, just from his experience in the field, and just that dude doesn't stop working. I'm sure you hear. I'm sure you yeah. So I'm glad you guys have the opportunity to partner with him, because he's one of a kind. Staying on fantastic. He really is. And staying on the technology front, what other tech really excites you? You mentioned reality capture, but like what else excites you for 2023 and beyond?
So we've been using point clouds quite a bit more lately, kind of alongside OpenSpace, right? Because I mean, you can go out, you can laser scan, say, a mechanical room, things like that. But depending on lighting, depending on angle of your laser, things like that, there may not be certain things you can see. If you can lay screen by screen reality capture and a point cloud together, I can see, oh, that's what that is, right? And so, because I can take a point cloud and I can drop it into Revit, and I can start building a model from there. But a lot of times that point cloud is not going to give you the definition of what you're really trying to model, or you're just not going to be able to tell, right? And if you didn't colorize it properly, there's so many things that could go wrong. Yeah. But having the reality capture from the OpenSpace just gives you yet another tool to kind of bolster that that effort up, right? And so it's something that our designers have really been able to take advantage of.
I love that. Yeah, those point clouds, they're our R&D team is constantly trying to find ways to plug in. Like, I'm sure you guys or some of your team is using the new iPhone with the LiDAR scanners, do the quick scans.
Yep.
And it's constantly improvement, but it's going to be really cool to be able to see a lot of that more inside OpenSpace as that progresses. So and kind of segueing, so from the fun part is talking about tech, right? But construction as a whole, we're hearing a lot of people are still doing work. Like, things are moving pretty rapidly, but what are some of the challenges you guys see in the construction space right now?
And it's kind of funny because Dan and I were talking about this earlier this morning. I think there are two main challenges that I've recognized. One that everyone is dealing with is just the short of labor, right? The shortness of labor. It's just not out there. And it's really, really hard to staff projects. I mean, McKenney's, I think we're a total of 1,600 employees now, and about 1,200 of those are in the field, all unionized, union labor. But it's really hard. We call the labor halls all the time, and hey, we need people. And they're like, well, we just don't have any, So things like OpenSpace are certainly, it helps us be able to minimize trips to job sites, things like that, right? And so it's helping with progress tracking, install tracking, things like that as well. So it helps alleviate that burden a little bit. And the other major challenge that I've started to recognize, and I don't know if it's just because of inflation and interest rates being up, but projects are moving extremely fast now. So much so that even by the time you're contracted and they're saying, all right, go ahead, start drawing this, you might be working on 50% documents, right? We're not even getting 90, 80, 90% documents anymore. We're having to start so early and move so quickly. With new construction, that's not quite as bad, right? Because it's just a big open blank canvas and space, and you can kind of do design build as you go. But if it's a reno or there's demo involved, that can become really, really difficult because you just don't know what's there, unless you're lucky enough to have built the core and shell yourself, right? And so being able to go out and do reality captures in no space, do laser scans, like I said, and kind of marry the two and do that sort of thing, that has been a huge help with kind of getting us up to speed and kind of a little bit of a workaround on having to work off what we would consider insufficient design or detail, So.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I know when Cole and I first started talking with trades 2 years ago, one of the pushbacks we would continually hear is, hey, reality capture seems great, but I want my guys out on the site. And by no means is technology going to take away from getting out on site. You got to be out on site. You have to be able to build. But you made like an interesting point. So you've noticed construction is moving quicker. Have you and your team found that reality capture allows them to move quicker by being able to virtually hop into a site? Like, is that something noticeable?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, so kind of how we got involved with OpenSpace, right? Because everybody goes to these different construction conferences and things, and you see all these new technologies. And in 2018, we were like, hey, here's this thing. Let's test it out, right? So we did a trial, and we were like, this is really cool. And then I don't know if you've heard or not, but in 2019, this big global event happened, right? And so at that point, designers are having to work from home. Construction sites are limiting access and limiting the amount of staff that can be on site. And we were like, well, how can we get designers access to our sites? And because like you said, nothing will ever replace a good job walk, right? And so, because you want your people on site, right? Whether it's project managers, designers, foremen, whoever, they need to be on site from time to time. But having a foreman or a journeyman or apprentice, somebody put a camera on their hard hat, walk that job site. We've got the walk and all the reality captures that we can see. The designers can see it. They can see it's almost like flying through a Navis model, right? You're like, man, I can see how things are going in. I can see how things are progressing. My job site's 2 hours away from the office. It's not really convenient for me to go out there. But especially during the early days of COVID and the pandemic, being able to provide these guys with timely updates when they're actually having to work from home and they can't even go to the grocery store, much less to a construction site, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
That was huge. And that's where open space really kind of started taking off for us. And we started recognizing a lot of ways that it was beneficial and ways that we could use it. So
yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, we had a conversation with Jacob over at TCE up in New York, and he had a very similar use case in regards to the design team. It's hard for the design team to get out to the site in a lot of cases, and if you notice something that needs to be changed or need an update from the design team, and they can't get out there for week, 2 weeks, what happens? That slows things down. You can't have that.
We've just started letting designers go back to job sites this year. So, we basically went nearly 3 years without them doing job site visits. So, and we relied heavily on open space for that. So
nice. Well, so let's actually hop into open space. Do you have a project?
I do. I guess this is a good time as any for screen sharing. So
let's do it. So
go ahead.
One thing that we'll do, if you want to share your project, we'll give everybody, I want you to walk everyone through kind of the basis of how you got this capture, what we're looking at. Give us the rundown.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So at McKenney's, we are a mechanical contractor, right? So HVAC, that's sheet metal piping, and we also do plumbing as well, across multiple, I guess what you could call sectors of the industry. A lot of healthcare. We do a lot of core and shell office towers, hotels, mission critical data centers. We also have an interiors group that does build outs, renovations, things like that. So what I'm going to show today is it's a healthcare job here in the Atlanta area that we did for really huge, very famous medical university here in Atlanta that's kind of sort of connected, right? They work together quite a bit. So it's also like it's a teaching hospital and that sort of thing as well. So this particular was for their musculoskeletal institution. But I'm just going to take and kind of look at one floor. And I think what's important, if you haven't used open space before, one of the most important things to keep in mind is, even though it's nearly impossible to do so, you want to keep the path that you walk as similar as possible every time that you go out, in repetitive walks, right? So that when you do marry up different captures, or you're looking at the side-by-side BIM comparison, things will line up as much as possible. So I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that we learned early on, is try to keep your walks as similar as possible each time. I know that's not always going to be possible, right? Because there's going to be stacks of conduit laying around, or there's going to be drywall in the way, but as much as you can keep it similar, I think that's very important. So in particular, in this walk, our apprentice was actually walking this one, and he would enter this same door every time.
Can you describe to us what a walk entails? What's the process of capturing,
Sure,
uploading, and then getting to this point where you're sitting in the office and you're able to drop in and take a look at this? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, you put the 360 degree, we use the Instas on our hard hats. You put that 360 degree helmet up on top of your hard hat. You walk out to the site. You can use your phone to tell it where you're starting, and then just drop your phone in your pocket and just go to walking, right? And different from earlier versions of, reality capture software or whatever. OpenSpace, I believe, takes a photo every half second or every second, something like that. And so you can walk continuously. You don't have to take a step, stop, take a step, stop. It's just a continual walk. And so that's kind of how that goes. And then, upload process is very easy. If you've ever uploaded any sort of file to computer, it's very intuitive, no issue whatsoever. And soon as it's processed on your guys' end, I can view every single bit of it. It's very quick. And then, as far as lining up drawings and BIM models, things like that, I have never seen you guys take more than 24 hours to do so. So, it's very quick turnaround. And again, very, very user friendly, very intuitive. So
I love
pretty
it.
straightforward.
So now, kind of give the audience an example of what we're looking at.
Mhm.
Shane has pulled up a floor plan of level 6. The green line is essentially the walking path, right?
Yes.
The photo taken it, and the blue cone is where you're looking at. So do you want to show us a little bit of the project and kind of, like, let's say this, the apprentice went out today, you were able to hop in. What does a typical day look like for you in OpenSpace? What are you looking at? What's your flow look like?
So generally what I personally use OpenSpace for is I kind of like to get a sense of progress and in that, how much have we progressed? Where did we start? How much more do we have to go? Obviously, this area from our standpoint is completely well, this is completed, right? It's sorry about that. But one of the things that you can do, one of my favorite features, is the split screen, to where you can view different captures of the same area. And so, you can go back as far as you've been walking the site, right? So, on this particular one, obviously this is where we had just roughed in this trunk line that crossed that corridor. There's no plumbing lines there. There's no fire protection, anything, so this was still very early on in the project. And so that's really kind of what I want to look at from capture to capture, is how far we have progressed since our last capture, which we try to walk every area at least once a week, so that we can kind of, use that alongside of our 3-week look aheads and things like that to say, okay, well, we said last week we were going to get this done. It's not done per the OpenSpace capture, or we got further per the OpenSpace capture, so it kind of helps us update staffing needs, things like that, right, too. So it's that's my biggest use of it for me personally, looking at it, if I were looking at it from a project management standpoint, right? So
I love that. And for the audience that hasn't, real quick, Shane, just so the audience understands, what Shane is looking at is automatically put together by the AI and computer vision OpenSpace has built. So all his team in the field has to do is do that capture. And when they're done, that AI is automatically organizing this information for Shane to be able to essentially pull up what you just did and show us. And so what else is this split screen giving you? Like, I know you like to use it from a progress tracking standpoint, but is there any other items that you've been able to use this for that you've seen value in?
I think one really cool thing about it, right, is you're able to use this also as, especially if you're billing based on schedule of values, things like that, right? So this can help you with billing, in that you can show proof of install, things like that. No superintendent from a general contractor can say, no, you haven't done this, and say, we were looking at in-wall stuff here, right? You could go back to a previous capture and you could say, nope, there it is. There's my battery, everything, it's there, right? So it helps a lot on the billing side. Again, just I kind of tie everything back to progress tracking, just because I was a project manager for 3 years. And so, there's always that little bit in my head that's kind of looking at things from a project management standpoint. Because like most project managers, I have no problem asking for my money, right? And so I will use something like this to kind of show proof of install and things like that. So really cool.
That makes sense. And it's such a common theme. No, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but we have somebody here at OpenSpace who used to be in the GC world. And anytime you get a payout from a trade, he'd automatically, if the app said 30%, he'd just come back and say 20, not even looking at it. It's like the game everybody plays.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
so it's a matter of just having data to be able to better coordinate, keep everybody on the same page, keep those relations strong so there's no headbutting. And no, it's exciting to see. So on that point, have you included the general contractor, your customer, in this? If not, have you seen conversations go better because of all this data and information? Can you tell us about that experience?
So we have not invited outside resources into our OpenSpace projects just for proprietary reasons mostly. Now, that being said, with a general contractor, I mean, the NDA would stand with them. It wouldn't be that big a deal. But we have used it in several meetings where we are able to pull it up on a screen, whether you're in a conference room or over Teams, Zoom, anything like that, right? And we have used it, and they have on several occasions, asked us for PDFs and things like that of proof. We've used it for change order documentation to kind of back up our claims for a change order. And I'll show it a little bit here in a second, but one of my favorite things is field notes. Field notes is awesome, right? And so we've used field notes for quality purposes to, kind of show the foreman, hey, this looks incomplete or something's not right here. This needs to be fixed. Track damaged material, right? So you can go back to an earlier capture and the material was fine, but in a more recent capture, there's a big dent in the ductwork. You're able to get back charges settled that way, right? And you have proof of it on screen. Nobody can dispute it, right? So that, and one of the things that we really, really, really use field notes for, our healthcare team has been one of our biggest adopters of the OpenSpace platform. And when you're building healthcare projects, there's a very high level of duct cleanliness that's expected, right? And so indoor air quality is a huge thing. And so what they'll do is, as we are doing rough ends and install, or even when material gets put, first delivered to the site, we document that everything has been protected, covered, all the openings are covered so that it's dust free, things like that. And so we have a ton of field notes that we just label as IAQ, where we can go back and say, everything was protected. And so that when it comes time for cleanup and test and balance and things like that, right? That's one step that we don't have to go through at the end of the project as far as cleaning and things like that.
Can you show us a field note?
Sure.
Can you walk us through like what it like what you're seeing, how you use the field note, what you put in? Because I agree with you. Field notes to me are the most underrated tool that we have, just because there's a bunch of, like you'll get the BIM compare where it's like the sexy tool that everybody loves because it's fun and exciting. But to me, like the field notes is where all like the value is, being able to bridge.
BIM compare is great, and I use it quite a bit. Our designers use it all the time, right? But field notes are huge, and field notes are super, super simple, right? You just click on the field note up here, kind of drag it in where you want it, and just say I wanted to call out that I had that end of that duct covered, right? There it is. So let's click on next. You can add a description, end of duct protected, whatever status. I would probably just go ahead and put complete, because we're just showing that we're actually protecting the end of the duct. But if this was like a quality issue, you could say priority 1, 2, or 3, depending on where you're at in the project. If it's a test and balance, issue, then obviously it would be high priority, right? If it's just early on in rough in, it might be a lower priority because maybe you're just looking at it as a completion list item or something as opposed to a true quality item. But tags, like I said, we have, where was it?
Well, you have a duct cleanliness one there even too.
Yeah, we
Wow.
could do duct cleanliness. I thought I had created an IAQ tag and put in there, but maybe not. Maybe that was on the other project. But one of the other cool things is an email list for people to get alerted for different field notes, especially if it's a quality issue that needs to be resolved. Right, I would probably put the foreman and the project manager in there as contacts for that, so that they would get that email alert and they would know there's a quality issue in that particular area. So,
well, this goes. Go ahead, Cole.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you kind of on this whole thing, and maybe Josh was actually getting there. Something that I've like realized a lot, and I want to ask, how much is this helping with coordination, just in the team? I think that, like, you know, the more I walk and the more I learn about, you know, construction, you be able to drop a field note or yourself hop in at any time and speak to someone about what's going on. Is this a huge, like, has this been a huge thing for you guys in coordination between teams and the whole nine? The travel.
It certainly has. I mean, you know, it's not coordination to the standpoint of if you were running clash reports and things like that, right? Which we all have to do from a design standpoint. But it certainly helps because before reality captures, basically the only way you could do something like that was pull up a model in Glue or Navis or something like that and basically just kind of walk through the model with whoever's involved and say, does this look right or does this, you know, not look right? And so in a standpoint like this, I mean, there's a JPEG picture of it right there, right? And you could say, okay, if for some reason that wasn't covered, you could say, hey, we need to get this end covered. Or, you know, if that wall had already been built and that duct wasn't lining up with the sleeve and the cutout, we could say, all right, coordination is off here. So, you know, and then you could go back to your BIM side-by-side comparison and kind of say, okay, are we installed the way we drew it? Is someone else not installed the way they drew it, right? And so, you know, we all love to say, hey, it works on paper. You know,
yeah. And I'm just talking about even like team to team, right? Like the old way is, hey, this is how we got a picture. I send it in a text or an email. Like, has this just been huge in the expediting communication between your teams, right? Your designers, your
internally,
people.
yes.
Yeah.
Internally. So we have designers for sheet metal, mech pipe, and plumbing, right? And so internally, it has become another tool. For them to look at whether, like say, it's a coordination meeting or a 3-week look ahead. They'll use OpenSpace a lot of times in their 3-week look ahead meetings. And if there's a question about a particular area, someone has put a field note in or something, right? Different designers from different crafts can kind of say, all right, well, maybe I can do this here, or maybe you can do that. Yeah. And so it has certainly helped with internal coordination. We haven't used it for, like I say, external coordination with other contractors, typically because we only lead BIM on certain projects. Most projects the BIM is led by the general contractors. So usually it's however they want to do it. And I don't know a ton of general contractors out there that are pushing reality captures for coordination purposes. I know a lot of them are doing it for as-built purposes and, and kind of proof of install and things like that, much like we do. General contractors want to get paid too. So
yeah, just kind of like piggybacking on what Josh said, I just feel like the coordination is so underrated, whether it be a field note or whatever. It's like it used to be, hey, I got to call this guy. I'm going to send this email a day or two later that you're getting to this, right? And I feel like, and speaking with Polk and Comfort Systems and some of the guys that we work with, it's like now, like we can all hop in, like you said earlier, even with COVID, right? All stakeholders can hop in here real quick and coordinate like way faster. And I just feel like it's so underrated and helps a lot. And I love to hear that from you.
Yeah, it goes back to that challenge you were talking about, Shane, with the labor shortage and projects moving faster. Field notes, that's why the field notes excite me the most, is because they're really driving the value behind somebody at a company being able to do more with less when there's a labor shortage. And if a project is moving quick and you physically can't make it out, even having the reality capture, how do you communicate what you're seeing in here to the field?
Right.
You can call them, you can take a screenshot, but simply just dropping a field note like you showed, it pins it to the floor plan. They can
Yep.
see it exactly. So can you show us now, say you're in your weekly meeting, you got the team in the room, you've taken all these field notes. Yep. Can you walk us through what that experience looks like?
Yeah. I mean, obviously these were, a while ago, but basically I would go to this specific tab, right? The field notes tab, to see what new things had gotten put in there, and be like, okay, this one has no status, but it's material left in rack unsecure. So obviously that's an issue, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's a safety concern, right? And so that's something else that you can use this for. And that's something that I forgot to mention earlier too, right? Is our safety group here at McKenney's has access to open space captures and things like that as well, so that they can kind of walk the site without having to drive 2 hours away, and they can sort of see things as well. And I think it's important to note too, to do a field note, you do not have to rely on the 360 camera, right? I can take a picture with my cell phone and do a field note with it there. So it doesn't have to come from the 360 camera. But if I were to see something like this in a 3-week look ahead, I'd go to that plumbing foreman and I'd be like, hey man, what in the world is going on? Why do you have all this copper laying up in the hangars with, no security to it whatsoever? So, that could fall, it could hurt somebody. It's not secured. It's clearly not installed properly. It could get damaged. It could get stolen. I don't know if you know or not, but people like to steal copper, right?
Yeah.
So it's, there's so many ways you can use field notes to drive conversation, right? This one was a quality log. It's a pipe spacing widens as it goes from hanger to the next. And so as you can see that it just doesn't run straight. It's just, it's not straight level plumb, right? Plumb level square. And so we could use that as a quality log. I know there are a lot of clients and general contractors who use a lot of different cloud sharing platforms, whether it's Procore or Helix or whatever they use, right? That's kind of where their quality items go. And I really, really like using OpenSpace for that particular reason.
Do you integrate with any of those other solutions within
we don't.
OpenSpace?
Our cloud service here at McKenney's is SharePoint. We just use SharePoint.
Okay.
Now, it's my understanding, if it's not already in place, you guys are beginning to integrate with Autodesk Construction Cloud.
Yes.
Which will be huge for us, because as we see the industry sort of transition away from BIM 360 over to ACC, I think that's going to be huge. If for no other reason, as it stands now, right, without the integration, if I want to publish a new model, I have to send it to you guys and say, all right, I want to update this model. With it integrating with ACC, anytime that model is updated, the integration will happen. So
can you actually go back to one of those field notes? So what Shane is talking about, we currently have an integration with Procore. We have one with PlanGrid. It's being looped into Autodesk ACC Cloud. So with these field notes, what you can do instead of them living in a silo, if your team is using Procore, like you, Shane, Autodesk, you could then push these field notes directly into Procore RFI observation or Autodesk observations as well. So they're not necessarily living in a silo, but the data entry and being able to capture this field note quickly, it automatically locates it on your floor plan. Right. You could then just push it directly into whatever solution you're using.
Well, and that's one of the great things, and the reason I brought up being able to do a field note with your cell phone or tablet or whatever you're using while you're out in the field is I can be out there doing my reality walk, my capture walk, right? And if I see something and I want to get that information to someone really quick, I can take a quick picture with my phone. I can put in the field note really quick and I can send it along. And if it's like you say, if it's integrated to Procore or ACC or PlanGrid or whatever, it'll push out to that almost immediately. It'll hit the quality log or whatever they're calling it in whatever different platform, but it's almost immediate, right? And so you're getting real-time information. And so that's one of the great things that I love about field notes. Is before I would have to, take a picture, call someone up, say, hey, what's going on with this? Maybe text them the picture or email it to them. And like Cole was saying, it might be an hour or two, or maybe even a day or two before I could hear back from it. But this is almost instantaneous. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were showing us an example that task 12 quality log, the pipe spacing. So that, like, say you want to bring in the design team. Do you have the BIM model uploaded in here? Can you show
Yeah, I do.
the audience the side by side and like what that process looks like for your design team, the office team being able to coordinate with the field on the design?
Yep. And so obviously that's, this is a covered area, but see, whoop, thought I had it locked. There we go. And don't underestimate, don't sleep on that lock button.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's how we're helping. From the feedback I've been getting, that little piece right there is how the field team is starting to adopt using BIM models.
Yeah. So again, this is kind of a, let me see if I can hide that selected, right? Oop.
There it is. Nice.
So yeah, really one of the really cool things that I like about the side-by-side comparison, especially with the BIM model, is if I'm looking at an earlier version of my reality capture, right? In fact, let's just go back real quick. Obviously the earlier versions are going to be less installed than previous versions, and so I can go in and kind of tell, most of the time where things are running. If my install is not complete, from a field standpoint, I can look at it and go, okay, this is what the model's showing. Yeah, I got shop drawings and all this stuff I can go off of, but this is what the model's showing. This is what I have complete. This is what I have left, right? And so just the side-by-side comparison with the BIM model is huge, especially from a field standpoint.
Huge.
Yeah,
and,
I love that.
The BIM model gives you an idea of what the space is going to look like when it's done, right? So if I'm in the field and all I know is I got a bunch of hangers hanging down that I got to run duct or pipe in. I don't really know what this space is going to look like though, right? And so being able to do a side-by-side comparison with the BIM model will give me kind of that perspective that I need of, oh, okay, that's why this pipe's running this way, or this is going to be covered, this is going to be exposed, this is why we have to do this. And so it's just so much information right there at your hands.
Yeah. And I love that you said don't sleep on the lock button. So what we meant by that earlier, if Shane decided to mess around in the BIM side and it unlocks it, and we've all experienced navigating a BIM model for somebody who's not familiar with it can be very difficult in a lot of cases, where you can hit that log button, it brings you right back to where you're standing on the image side. So I don't know if you've experienced this, Shane, but what we've heard a lot is a lot of our customers' field teams are starting to be able now to navigate BIM, and be able to explore the BIM model by using this side by side. What's that experience been like?
It has, because we get a lot of young project managers, right, who are out of just freshly out of college. They'll come in as a project engineer or an assistant project manager, and they probably don't have a ton of experience with Glue or Navisworks or any sort of true modeling software. Maybe they've had a little exposure to AutoCAD or SolidWorks or something when they were in school, but they've never really seen it on a big scale, right? And they've really never had to navigate a whole building, right, in a model. But being able to kind of lay this side by side comparison up there, certainly it is huge for young people who just don't have that experience that maybe some of us do have with modeling softwares. And hell, even for myself, right? As much as I have spent in Navisworks, there's so many times when maybe I move too far and I'm like, oh God, now I got to restart everything, right? Being able to hit that lock button, man, it just goes right back to where my capture says I am. So
I love that.
yeah.
So one of the questions I always like to ask, and you've been with us for quite a bit now, and you've had the opportunity to speak with our product team and meet them, and that's one of the benefits about being with OpenSpace. We value a lot of what our customer bring to us because
That's right.
You're in the field, you know construction better than we do, and we take what you say, and our product team sees how we can implement it and bring that back to the field. And I think you've seen that kind of full circle with some of the feedback you've been giving. So I always love to ask this question. If you right now, let's say you have our product team's ear, what's one thing that excites you about OpenSpace in the future and something you would love to see implemented in OpenSpace that's currently not there?
So obviously the integration with ACC is going to be huge because I think ACC is probably one of the best things that Autodesk themselves have done in a long time. And so integrating with that is going to be huge for the industry. Any softwares you can line up with that. One of the other things that I'm really excited for is the implementation of Z-Access, right? I think that's going to be huge. I know that's kind of on the roadmap as well. And kind of to your point, Josh, I really do want people to know that OpenSpace listens to their customers. I asked for a couple of times. I was like, man, I either want an open API call or I want some admin rights to where I can see my usage and be able to report that back to my superiors, right? And you guys delivered, right? You guys gave me admin reports, right? So obviously you have to have admin access to get to them, but that seems like something small, I think, to most people. But to me, I said, hey, here's something I want, and you guys provided. And so to me, that was huge, right? And being able to get that kind of response and support from one of your partners, it's just, it keeps you wanting to do business with them, right? So
yeah, I love that. And it's been awesome working with you. I remember we had the opportunity to speak almost 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and here we are today, and
right,
you guys have been doing really well. We got Wesley on board now. You know, Cole's here, and we're just, you know, continually trying to innovate and get your feedback. And you're right. Like, I remember when you had brought that up in one of our business reviews almost a year ago about the admin reporting, and you know, it didn't happen overnight, but
no.
It's here, and it's something we value when our customers bring us feedback like that.
Right. But even that being said, even before you guys did provide those reports, I could always reach out to Wesley or even Georgie before Wesley, right? And be like, hey, can you let me know this? And they would send over a BI report, you know, almost within just a couple of hours. They're like, here you go. This is what you asked for. I'm like, all right, that's great. So
something I talk about a lot is just like, you know, my joke is it gets way better after me. And I think that, like, hats off to Wesley and our product team and our engineers. I don't know, man. I think it like you said, it just means a lot to have someone to listen. And then, you know, like you said, you have your quarterly with Wesley tomorrow. I know that's on my calendar, you know, and it's a big deal, man. And then our CS team, our product team, all the way down top to bottom. I just think OpenSpace is here to help. That's our goal, you know. So I love hearing that.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, Shane, it's been a pleasure, man. This has been fun.
Been a blast, man. Let's do it again sometime. I guess kind of in closing, just to those of you watching this, this is a great platform. I'm not being paid to sell this by any means, right? It's a great platform. I have enjoyed getting to know these guys. I've really enjoyed using the product. There's actually much more that it does that we didn't actually show you here today, whether that's OpenSpace Track, which I've only used on one particular project, just kind of as a test, but I see the potential there. So I think there's some great things going on there. But there's so many things that the platform does that I didn't even have time to go through, or probably even the knowledge to show you how to do that. Maybe Josh or Cole could show you better than I can. But if you're looking to get into the reality capture side of things, give them a look for sure. I'm sure these guys will be happy to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah.
Shane, appreciate that, man. That means a lot.
Sure.
All right, fellas. Well, it's
Appreciate
been fun.
it, guys. Let's do it
Shane.
again.
Thank you,
See ya.
Yes, sir. All right, guys.